Hey guys, I'm gonna keep this intro a little bit shorter than the last one, but this is gonna be my new series of Stop Being a Victim, and I'm gonna have this as a resource for people who are trying to learn the game or trying to get better at the game because there's a lot of like complaining and not a lot of learning going on in the Rivals community. So hopefully, as this goes on, there will be a place where people can just get all the information they need. It's not going to be just over strategist. It's going to be over the entire game in general, the macro, the micro. But this is going to be the first one. We talk about the basics of strategist and just how to start out. With that being said, if you enjoy the video, let me know in the comments down below. And if there's anything else that you can think of or you're struggling with and you want to be covered in this series, leave it down there as well. And I'll eventually get to it. And I hope you enjoy. Have a nice day. Bye-bye. But yeah, so I've seen a lot of bitching and complaining on the multiple social medias about, not just from support players, but from like DPS players and tank players especially. So I'm starting this series called Stop Being a Victim, Take Accountability, right? And pretty much what it is just going to be I'm going to give as many resources and information as I can, so that people who know who I am don't have an excuse anymore, right? Obviously, not everybody will know, but hopefully this will get to people and people will actually just start getting better at the game and stop just being losers. We're gonna be talking a lot about like the jobs of a strategist, how I see a 3D printer. Yes, this is my 3D printer, but so a lot of the contents are going to be about like the jobs of a strategist, positioning, cooldown management, and ability tracking, and how all three of those can help you do the jobs that you do, you have, right? Though I will say, what are the jobs of a strategist, right? I think there are three main jobs. Staying alive. The number one rule is staying alive. Then after staying alive is keeping your team alive, right? Once you can take control of both of those and get really good at those, your third job is enabling team plays, like helping, for example, damage boosting a flanker on Mantis, right? Or charming somebody so that we can get a stun off or an ultimate off, stuff like that, right? Enabling your team. But you can't do the third one without the first two. You can't do the second one without the first one. So that's why I say the staying alive is the third most important job, and then the other two come after that. The reason that staying alive is the most important job is because if you are dead, you're not healing. If you're not healing, you're not getting ult charge. If you're not getting ult charge, you're not getting your support ult quicker, right? You want to be getting your ultimate very quickly because support ults are good at, like they are genuinely just good in this game. And if you're dying less, you're healing more, which means your team can do more with you there, right? I think the best skill to get better at staying alive is positioning. Most of the time, if a support dies, it is because they were just not in a good spot. They weren't standing in the spot that they need to stand in, right? To keep your team alive, you need to understand who is important to keep alive, right? It's not just keeping everyone alive and using all of your abilities once people start, losing, taking damage completely. It is about keeping the right people alive at the right times, right? Your main focus after keeping yourself alive is keeping your other support alive. And that's what you want to focus on, is keeping the other support alive. After that, you can do with like your tanks, right? Because they hold the line. They keep the influence of your team up. If you have no tanks, you don't have any influence on the map compared to the enemy team. And then obviously lastly is DPS, because a lot of the times most DPS characters are self-sufficient, right? They can do things on their own. They don't need as much help. Like if you think about a Spider-Man who doesn't need a lot of healing because he's fast enough to get to a health pack and then get back into the fight. Situations like that is what we're talking about. I think the best way to deal with this job though is getting better at cooldown management. If you are consistently struggling at keeping your team alive, you are probably using your abilities when you don't really need to, so then you don't have them when you need them, right? And the third one, enabling team plays. So this is the third most important job that we talked about like from the start. But enabling your team can look like a Mantis damage boost, right, on a flanker, but it can also look like you like a invis pushing a strange ult away, right? That is enabling your team by interrupting the enemy, right? Things of that nature, right? So it's not just you specifically doing something to your team. It can also be you doing something to the enemy team, but by stopping them from doing something to yours. Okay. I think the best skill to have for this job is ultimate tracking, right? Now, when I say ultimate tracking, I think of both ultimate and ability tracking. The reason people don't really say a lot of ability tracking is because abilities come up so quickly and ultimates don't, right? There are some abilities that come up really slowly, but for the most part, you're just going to be calling out abilities and you're going to be actually tracking ultimates. And we'll get to that later on, right? So, how do I position betting? Well, the three main questions I ask myself are, where is the enemy? Where is my team? And where am I? And from those main core questions, we can ask ourselves even simpler questions. Can I see the enemy? Right? Do I have a direct line to where the enemy is? And do I know where all of the enemy is on the enemy team? Like, am I missing somebody? Are some of them flanking? Which is the next question. If I don't see the whole enemy, why? Is it because there is someone flanking? Do I know where they're flanking? I might not be able to see them, but do I know where they are? Do I hear them, like, with my ears? Or did I see them go on their flank and I know that they're there, I just can't see them at the moment? And another question pertaining to the enemy is, does the enemy keep making the same play over and over again, right? If they keep, like, flanking your left flank and you are continuously positioning yourself on the left side, stop autopiloting those positions, right? Try and make it harder for them to get to you by positioning yourself on the right side. In this example, positioning yourself on the right side, which makes someone flanking from the left harder to get to you, right? So it's forcing them to change up their game plan, even if it's just going from the right side instead of the left side, because maybe the right side takes longer, right? The next question is, where is my team, right? In that question, is my team between me and the enemy? On support, for the most part, and there are differences between, like, the different ways of playing, like dive, brawl, and poke, but for the most part, you want to have your tanks, mostly your tanks, but you can also, depending on your DPS, but mostly your tanks between you and the enemy, right? Because that is a wall, that is protection, right, from you and the enemy. And that's how you can line yourself up, right? Another question you can ask is, can my team help me quickly if I need it, if someone is diving me? And what that means is, am I too far back, right? Is my team super far ahead? Am I too far back? Am I way off to the left side of the map by myself, or am I way off to the right side? The third question is, where am I, right? And within that is, am I isolated from my team? That goes back to the, can my team help me quickly, right? Am I by myself? If I get dove from the position that I'm in, will it take a long time for my team to be able to turn around and get to me? Or am I next to my team? Can they just turn around and immediately help me with, like, their cooldowns or something like that? Being within range of the of actions of my team. Like, for example, can my mag just turn around and bubble me? Or am I too far away? That's isolating yourself, right? Do I have cover / an escape plan? If there is, like, a Hela on the enemy team, can I just step 2 steps to the left and be behind a wall where she can't shoot? Or am I out in the open? Am I standing with no cover whatsoever, right? Or on the flip side, away from poke, if we go to dive, do I have an escape plan in case someone in case a daredevil comes after me, right? On White Fox, is my TP on cooldown? On Invis, do I have my push and my double jump? Like, did I waste these things, right? Keeping an eye on where your team is relative to the enemy team, where the enemy teams are if they're flanking, always trying to play around cover and where your team is, and having an escape plan makes you a very annoying support to kill, right? These people that are known for like these rocket players, right, that are known for not being able to be killed, or the Jeff players that seem to always escape from you, it's because they, most of the time, they know their plan and they're executing it in case you try to go on them, right? Managing cooldowns. This was back to like not letting people die, and there are multiple ways that you can use a cooldown. You can use it to protect somebody, or protect yourself, or protect somebody, right? And there are a lot of cooldowns in the game, especially on support, that you can use in that way. For example, like the White Fox teleport. A lot of the times, you're going to use that, you're going to hold that teleport in case someone is like on you, or you get really, really low health and you can TP back to your team for safety, right? You don't want to be just using that off cooldown, because then it'll make it's easier for you to be killed, right? Another example of protecting is like invis shield. Putting that in front of somebody, or in front of yourself to block damage. Things of that nature. Then on the flip side, there's enabling, right? Using cooldowns to help your teammates succeed in their game plan. And the biggest example is like what we mentioned earlier, the Mantis damage boost on a flanker, right? So if a Spider-Man, or let's say a Daredevil, if a Daredevil goes on a flank, damage boosting him as he's going on that flank, like right before he dives in, will make it to where his kill pressure is a lot higher. So it forces a lot more cooldowns out from the enemy to protect from just that DD than if you didn't have the Mantis damage boost, right? Other examples is Soul Bond. Now, Soul Bond can be used in multiple different ways, right? You can use it to protect, like in the last point, but a lot of like high level atoms, they will Soul Bond their team, and then their whole team will push into the enemy team, right? So that's enabling your team because of the damage distribution that it does, right? So you're taking less damage overall, technically, per person. The next point is control, right? There are some abilities in this game that are really good at controlling an area, right? And keeping these areas for the control is really good, instead of using them to just like willy-nilly because your tanks or your DPS lost like 1 health, right? A great example of this is like Cloak and Dagger's bubble, right? Now, this is just like Soul Bond, the other example we gave. It can be used to protect like against a dive. You put it down at your feet, you and your support sit in it, right? But a really strong way to use it is putting it on like the corner where the line of influence of your team is, and fighting the enemy tanks is keeping them up there so they can put more pressure, right? If you are standing in a cloak bubble, you inherently have more pressure than if the enemy tanks aren't standing in one, right? Because you, one, have that burst of 60 healing, and you have that constant healing over time while the bubble's up, right? So looking for situations like that, or throwing the bubble in the backline while your team, when your like team is diving, stuff like that, right? The last way that you can use an ability is to counter the enemy, right? So using a sleep when like a Hulk comes in on Mantis, and just letting him sit there, wasting his time, and him having to jump back to his team once that sleep is over. Or like we used in an earlier slide, you see a Strange trying to ult and you push him away on invis, right? That is countering the ult by just pushing him, or using Charm on White Fox. These kinds of things are what makes a great support player, right? Holding yours, not just using them because you have it, but holding them for these impact plays is what it's called. Like there's low impact and there's high impact, right? Now, you don't want, after saying this and the managing your cooldowns, you don't want to just hold your abilities forever, right? The next thing that we're going to talk about leads into ultimate and ability tracking, right? You don't need to hold invis push if you know 100% certainty that the Strange does not have ult, or you don't need to hold White Fox Charm if you know 100% that the Strange or the Wanda don't have their ultimate, right? Because if you're holding it and they don't have it, that's not creating value. You can use it in other situations, right? So I think when it comes to ultimate and ability tracking, the first thing you need to know is knowledge of other characters. If you don't know what the abilities of other characters do, you can't fight or play around them, right? If you don't know what Adam's soul bond does, you don't know that when you see an entire enemy team get soul bonded and start walking towards you, that it's dangerous, because you don't know that all the damage you do to one person is being evenly divided to everybody, right? And that goes for like Iron Fist parry, that goes for Strange ult, that goes for White Fox teleport, stuff like that. Now, there are differences between high impact and low impact abilities, and you want to make callouts based off like those things. So low impact abilities, a simple callout to your team really can handle that. And what I mean by low impact is, for example, Iron Fist parry. It's not going to kill anybody if the Iron Fist does his parry, right? It just keeps him alive longer if you shoot at his parry. And it's not a very long cooldown, so it'll be back up quickly, right? So you want to call out like Iron Fist no parry, right? In case like he's low health and y'all can shoot him really quickly, but you don't want to make a big fuss about it, right? We can transition to the high impact abilities, right? These, instead of just calling them out and be like, hey, they don't have this ability, hey, they don't have Iron Fist parry, hey, they don't have White Fox Charm, stuff like that. You want to call these out and then try to focus these kinds of people. A good example of this is like Dino not having his bubble shield, like his big shield. If he doesn't have that, he doesn't have a good way of blocking the damage that's coming in at him, except for getting healed by somebody, right? Another example is like White Fox teleport. It's not on the shortest, I mean the longest cooldown. It's a pretty short cooldown relative to other cooldowns, but without that cooldown, she is in increasingly more danger than if she had it, right? So calling that out and trying to get a DPS or somebody else to focus her and kill her off is a high impact value move, right? Like the third thing that you can track and what most people track when it comes to like tracking things on the enemy team are ultimates. There are two ways that I use to track ultimates in my game when I'm playing either in a tournament or in my celestial lobbies. And it is either paying attention to my team's ultimates, especially if there is an equivalent person on the enemy team, i.e. like there's a Daredevil on my team and a Daredevil on the enemy team. I will keep track of how of my DD's ultimate, and if he's at like 60%, I am pretty comfortable, especially if it's at the start of the game, I am pretty comfortable in saying that the other DD does not have ultimate, right? Or if like a Strange, if my Strange is at 95% to ult, and my Strange and the enemy Strange have been playing pretty similarly, the game has been pretty close, I can assume that Strange either is about to have ult or he already has it, right? Because that's 5% difference in ultimate is not very much difference, right? The second way to keep track of ults is being mindful of the kill feed, right? Who is doing all the killing? If my Strange is not doing a lot of the killing on my team and he has 70% ult, but the last fight, the enemy Strange killed everybody, he probably is much closer to ult than my Strange, right? And that goes for anybody. If on my team, my White Fox dies early, right? If I'm playing somebody else and my White Fox dies early, I know that if she's at 50% charge for the next fight, their White Fox or their other support probably has more ult charge than she does, because she was dead And that goes back to our first rule, our first job, right? Staying alive so you can get more ult charge and you can keep that healing up, right? So I know that the enemy team probably is closer to their ults than their support ults than our support ults together, right? I think ult tracking is one of the hardest skills for a support player, but I think it's one of the best skills for a support player to know. I think everyone should be ult tracking, but support specifically, I think it is the strongest role to ult track on. All right, that was the first concept segment for our no victims series that we're doing, and I'm gonna try and do this weekly with different concepts. This one I just wanted to start out with the overall blanket of support. Later on we can either go into very specifics like how do you ult track. I hope you all enjoyed that, and I hope I explained it pretty well.